You're listening to Geeks Unleashed.
A podcast that covers what's current in the world of pop culture.
I'm Mark Brassington, and I'm in London.
And I'm Jasmine in Texas.
Hello, welcome to Geeks Unleashed. This is episode 60.
If you are not already subscribed, you can find us at Geeks Unleashed everywhere, including your favorite podcast platform. Remember, 5-star reviews help us get found by more listeners, so please rate and review Geeks Unleashed on Apple or Podchaser.
I'm Steven, your esteemed host of Geeks Unleashed, episode 60. Oh, yeah, and also Jasmine and Mark are here, too.
Yeah. Those
Thanks,
other
man.
guys are
Those
here
other
too.
guys.
Yeah.
You know, the people who started it all.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. Who cares?
Yeah. It's a shame they're here, man. Otherwise, it'd just be the Steven solo show.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Ooh,
That's a nice ring to it.
Yeah. Next week it'll just be Steven. So anyway, for this week's review, we're sticking with the MCU and reviewing the first season of Loki from Disney Plus.
And spoiler warning, this is a review show. So if you have not had a chance to watch Loki on Disney Plus, we suggest you pause this and come back. Otherwise, we are about to spoil all 6 episodes for you.
This week on our Who Wins Wednesday, I think it was a good one because there was a lot of controversy and there was some good comments in the Instagram post, as there always is. Loki versus Joker. Mm-hmm. So who do you think would win, Stephen?
Well, as I said before, it's Joy Buzzer versus Norse God. I just don't. I mean, no matter how cool he is, he can't conjure a cannon.
So what about you, Jasmine? Who'd win?
I mean, it's got to be Loki, right? He's a god. And especially if you're talking about the Loki that appeared at the very end of the God of War video game, like that fucking guy was real scary. Like, yeah, I'm giving it to Loki.
Yeah, well, and Loki traditionally has better hair.
So this Loki, the Loki in the Versus was the Marvel Comics one. I think if it was the God of War video game, those fucking crazy.
The God of War video game versus Arkham Asylum. That would be a fun one.
Maybe we'll rejig. But
it was really split though, wasn't it? Because the comments, like almost, I would say 98% lean toward Loki, but the poll in the stories was heavily in favor of Joker.
I would say for me, and I know like how do I get there, but Joker for me would win.
Yeah, how do you get there?
So the way I see it is Joker, if you're talking about say a Heath Ledger style Joker, you know, he's got 20 steps ahead, and I just think Loki doesn't plan that far ahead. Like he's more of a spur of the moment crazy, where Joker is a long-term strategist crazy. Like he can't. Joker will do the crazy random shoot the bloke for no reason, but he also does have much longer term plans. So I can almost see him going to Loki, come on man, like, you know, let's team up, whatever. But then secretly Joker has already planned Loki's death. I just, you know, I don't know, for me I just see Loki, I see Loki as
so you see Loki
2 or 3 steps
Joker.
ahead. Yeah. I think that Joker would definitely take him out one way or the other. You know, they become friends. They might go on holiday together. They're sunbathing. All of a sudden, Joker kills Loki. Like, you know, so.
Why do I feel like you know what kind of swimsuits they're wearing while they sunbathe?
Yeah, there's definitely like a Hawaiian floral shirt, Tommy Bahama thing going on there. I'm certain.
Yeah, they're skinny dipping. They're, you know, putting some lotion on each other.
Like, this is a family show, Mark.
Is it?
Yes, Steven. Good grief.
As Steven says as he's drinking his beer. Like,
yeah, I was going to say.
And but no, the way I see it is Joker plans way too far ahead, where I think Loki doesn't plan far enough ahead. And I think it's fairly evident from when we talk about the TV show, he's got no plans. Like he's just going with the flow. So
he's winging it.
Loki wings it, and Joker is a combination of both. So
Joker puts 10 years into something before it pays off for him.
Yeah.
Well, not to be corny, but Loki survive. So
this is true.
Oh, that was
good one. That was a good one.
Well, until recently, there was 3 Jokers. So you know,
yeah.
Are they variants?
Jokers survive plot holes. That's their
Yeah.
power. They multiply with plot holes.
That's almost more important though in the comic world, right?
Yeah, that's like the how fast does Flash run? The speed of the plot.
Yeah. So basically what it boils down to is this one is another draw. I would say this one was about as evenly split as Riddick versus Dom Toretto. So
I mean, a draw if you think Loki loses, yeah.
I mean, listen. The stories said one thing, the comments said another thing. So we got to take both of them into account.
Yeah. And I suppose Stephen and Jasmine, you're both saying Loki, and yeah. All right, we'll give it a 70% to the Joker.
Hey,
right.
man, I like George, or I like Jerry Lewis, and I like Dave Bautista, but I know who would realistically win in a fight. You know what I mean?
I mean, I wouldn't discount Jerry Lewis completely. Okay.
Well, he is dead now.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, if we're being
I've just got weird visions of like
realistic.
a coffin fight Dave Bautista.
Freud Lehman. Yeah.
Right. Anyway,
okay, sorry, we're focused.
let's move on to
Where's your
something
professionalism, Mark?
Yeah, come on. Jasmine, let's just sit back and let Stephen run this shit. Like,
Oh, geez. I don't know about that, man. I don't know about that. All right, just to kind of kill the mood for a little bit. So our first news story for the week is a big one. I don't know about you guys, but like I'm pretty into a lot of gaming stuff. So this has dominated my feeds for the week.
Yep.
But in the California court system, the Department of Fair Employment and Housing has filed suit against Activision Blizzard for a plethora of deplorable things. This lawsuit was 2 years worth of investigating claims from female employees at the company that they reported these incidents to HR. Now, I don't make a habit of reading court filings, but I read this court filing, all like 30 pages of it.
Yeah,
and some of the stuff that they are saying happened inside the walls of like an 8 to 5 job building where Activision Blizzard was, like drunken cube crawls, which basically boils down to the male employees either get drunk at work or show up to work hungover and then troll the female employees in the cubicles as they're still like drunkenly in a stupor. Like it's Hulk. Seriously? They claim, and this is the literal terminology that they use in the lawsuit, but a frat boy culture where there are rape jokes, there is physical harassment, there are pay inequities, there is slow to no promotion for women at all. And when women report these things, they are retaliated against. I mean, it's insane. And of course, the statement that Activision Blizzard released was the Department of Justice, or the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing was supposed to contact us before they file this in high court and yada, yada, yada. Yeah. But like, come on, think about it. The people who produce some of the biggest games in the world, World of Warcraft, Diablo, Overwatch, Call of Duty, like, this is really how you guys roll in the office? That's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no other way to describe that. It's like literally reading the accounts of these things in that court filing was some of the worst shit I've ever read. It was just horrific. So 2 years worth of investigating. This lawsuit finally gets filed, and Activision Blizzard's response was, you guys should have informed us before you file this. Like they didn't really dispute anything. They didn't deny anything. They said you should have talked to us first. And honestly, that pretty much tells me everything that I need to hear.
Yeah. Well, that was like, why didn't you give us the heads up so we could cover this up?
Exactly. I mean, how else can you interpret that?
Yeah. Well, and their response was, like you said, it didn't address the accusations.
Not at all.
It said that they cooperated with was it DFE,
Mm-hmm.
and that and like you said, that they were mad that what?
Yeah,
it's
that they
like
didn't get a heads up. Exactly.
Yeah, it's like Well, you didn't tell us specifically what we did wrong. So you're saying crawling under ladies' desks and saying awful things. That's not okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
groping and making rape jokes. Like that's it's all fun and games. So it's all we're just joking. Yeah, sure.
Well, and actually, too, like if you guys keep up with Alana Pierce, she's a really well-known commenter on game culture, and she worked at IGN, and I believe she's a writer over at Sony now. Yeah, she's got some pretty smart insights, and she digs into like the specifics on the lawsuit. Anyway, it's just interesting hearing it because she's worked in gaming, and she, you know what I mean, she's brought this kind of culture to the forefront before. Anyway,
normally like when we talk about gaming, it's always like, oh, the culture is bad because everybody's in a crunch culture. So basically it's like, oh, we're working 96-hour weeks because we got a game launch, we got a deadline, we got to hit it. But can you imagine like this on top of those ridiculous game schedule? I mean, it's insane. And it's infuriating because it's a space that I would love to be a part of, but like stuff like this is the exact reason why I hate multiplayer games.
Yeah.
Like I just don't want to be bothered with the harassment that comes with it.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, as a guy plays games, like I can't relate to it. Like I don't, so many of these kind of conversations, like I don't.
I've heard stories about
reference.
I've heard stories about like friends where they've like say left their headset on the side or something because they've, I don't know, halfway through had to stop playing a game or something because life happens, and they put their headset down and they've come back and heard people in the back going like, what the fuck are you doing, blah blah, and they're like, well man, I'd like had to go out to the door, or I had to go help my wife, or I had to go help my kids. Yeah, well, you're fucking playing a game, like so, all right man, it's just like
it is not that serious. But yeah, this is who knows what is going to be the outcome. I'm hoping that, I mean, what else can you hope for other than the victims receive some kind of recompense for the horrible things that they went through?
This story does sound horrendous.
This has to change. Like this cannot be the way forward. I mean, it just can't. You cannot have these exclusive spaces that are only for men. Like, you just can't.
Well, it wasn't. I was going to say this story, like, sounds like one of the worst examples I've heard of this kind of behavior. Like you hear about it marginally, like i.e. like one or two people, but that like literally sounds like the entire culture of this company was
this
like
was
it
not
says
one guy in one department that was ruining things for everyone. No, this is everyone. And there's no way that all this stuff is happening and the higher ups don't know about it. Like obviously these women reported these things to HR. And I'm sure, like most big corporations, they did an internal investigation, which I don't even think companies should ever be allowed to do an internal investigation. That should always be a third party. But 2 years, like the DHF was investigating this for 2 years.
Yeah. Well, and it's honestly, and even though I think a lot of times it feels like, well, not everyone there was doing it, but it's a culture of complicity.
Yes,
you know what I mean? Where, you make excuses for somebody who is otherwise a nice guy, or you know what I mean? You make people who call out these kind of behaviors feel like they're being a problem.
Right. He was just joking. Yeah. Why do you take it so seriously?
Yeah. Anyway, I for one, honestly, I'm not a big fan of Activision anyway. Like, weren't they in the middle of like a big executive payout fiasco?
Didn't it have something to do with Netflix? They poached someone from Netflix or something like that?
I can't remember. I ran across something about Robert Kotick, I thought. But anyway, it was some kind of, I may be mixing up my facts here, but it was an exchange based on COVID where it ended up not to be as altruistic as it looked. Anyway, so sorry, I'm derailing again.
No surprise coming from a company with a lawsuit filed with these kinds of claims. So
yeah.
Anyway, Activision, Blizzard, get your shit together. Like, seriously, this is ridiculous.
Yep.
So moving into, I mean, it can only be described
much
as nice
better
news. Yeah, much better news. Michaela, I can't say it.
Michaela Coel.
Michaela, let me start again. Moving on to much nicer news. Michaela Coel has been cast in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. The British star has been announced as having joined the cast, although nobody knows what she's going to be. There's clearly always fanboy speculation. That's probably most likely wrong, because that's what Marvel does to us. We guess and we guess and we guess and we shout out that it's Darmanu, or what's that guy? Everyone kept saying in WandaVision.
Yeah, I don't know.
Everybody said it was Mephisto.
Yeah. Like everyone kept saying it was Mephisto. Anyway, there's a lot of speculation that people think this could be Storm.
They were right about Jonathan Majors, though. He was Kang.
Yeah. Well, he will be.
One time, Stephen.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Batting 1 in 1,000.
Yeah, exactly.
So in case you don't know her, she's been in loads of things, most famously for the TV series I May Destroy You, but she's been in a lot of other things as well. British things, The Aliens, Chewing Gum, a really small role in Star Wars: The Last Jedi. She had a couple episodes in Black Mirror, Black Earth Rising. She's quite, had quite a nice sort of slow burning career. Yeah. So she's from... she grew up in London, Tower Hamlets to be specific, and I'm excited for her to be in it. So let's talk about the Storm thing. Like, let's play it out if she is Storm. Now, the only reason they put her as Storm in there is because of a potential love interest with Black Panther. As we know that Chadwick Boseman isn't going to be in it. Now, that kind of, to me, thinks, well, we still don't know who Black Panther's going to be, do we? So there was a lot of talk around it being Black Panther's sister, Shuri. So if she's been brought in as a potential love interest for Black Panther, are they going down the route of not recasting, obviously, Black Panther, but having a new one, like maybe Baku could be Black Panther? I don't know. Like that's kind of what my thoughts are. Are we going to see like a new Black Panther come in and she's going to be the love interest of the new Black Panther? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Or is she a previous love interest that comes back to Wakanda because T'Challa has died?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, she maybe the opening scenes are a funeral and she's there. And then maybe
but then I hope that they don't play it where it's her versus Nakia. Like that would just be a terrible thing to do.
Yeah.
To pit them against each other.
Yeah, well, I hope not. But I don't know. Like I don't know. I'm curious if it is down the Storm route. Like why would they bring that in? So that's kind of my thoughts: is why would you bring Storm in?
Why indeed?
Yeah, why would you bring it in? Because we know that Storm and T'Challa got married in the comics, and obviously are not together anymore. But that would be a brilliant move for Marvel to try and pair them up. We know that they're not going to recast T'Challa, so is there a new Black Panther? That's kind of what my thoughts were, like a new male Black Panther, rather than what we were thinking was Shuri become Black Panther. Yeah. So
that would be interesting if they're laying the groundwork for that.
Maybe Shuri will become Black Panther. Maybe there'll be multiple Black Panthers. So maybe they're going to go down that route. So, I don't know. We're just guessing.
And Marvel is just loving it. We're doing all this free advertising for Marvel.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tell us more about Marvel, Stephen.
Yeah. So Disney and Marvel kind of got into, I won't say deep water but they got into a little bit of trouble with theater owners because of the split that they've been doing. It began with Mulan and then continued most recently with Black Widow, where they offer premiere access to films that are released simultaneously in theaters. And it harkens back to I feel like a deeper issue with movie studios and movie theaters. Movie theaters not really understanding that without the venues, they wouldn't have existed for however long. Especially in the United States, the dollar split on a ticket is like 60% in the studio's favor. And anyway, all that to say, I think theaters have had enough between this and with the Universal deal that they had to cut just to ensure that they could get Universal films in their theaters and accommodate the early release there on streaming. I think that they're the theaters are putting down their foot and saying that, hey, we've supported Hollywood for this long, and we need you to, now that the pandemic is tapering off in certain areas, or hopefully tapering off, depending, that we can actually get back to business as normal. And Warner Brothers has already come out. They were the other big proponent of releasing on streaming, and a lot of people saw them as a bigger problem because they didn't even charge on their streaming service. They were just hoping to gain a user base. But they have come out and said that essentially that the simultaneous release on streaming was a 2021 situation, and that they don't plan to continue that past this year. So it'll be curious to see how that changes for Disney, because Black Widow, like, it's still done really well in theaters, but the 60% drop last weekend, and then also the split, like they said that it made something like $60 million, if I'm remembering correctly, on Disney Plus versus the 80 million. I mean, that's for theaters, that's revenue they really needed right now. So anyway, it's an interesting thing that I personally kind of hope breaks in the theaters' favor. They've had, they've been struggling for a while now.
I actually should have done a little bit more research, but I kind of want to look at the numbers of like Fast 9 compared to Black Widow, since Fast 9 did not have any kind of simultaneous release. It was only in theaters. And I imagine that is just as big a blockbuster as Black Widow is, or, could be. So I'm interested to see what that looks like, because Universal was banking on the theater comeback, which was why the Fast franchise was the first film when the pandemic hit to get pushed back anyway, because it was supposed to drop April of 2020, which was sort of right when, in the middle of, nobody really knew what the hell was going on with coronavirus.
I mean, I just quickly Googled this. Like, I'll be honest, didn't like you say prep, but it said Black Widow plunges 67% as Fast 9 nears 600 million worldwide.
So 600 million in theaters. I mean, that's a lot of freaking money.
Yeah, well, and I will say it's kind of early to be dismissing Black Widow 2, because Fast and the Furious opened to 80 million or 70 million versus the 80 million, and then on top of that, it also had a 67 or in the 60% drop the second weekend, but it's held pretty well, and it's done really well overseas. So
yeah,
I mean, I think it's worth kind of seeing how it goes. But,
well, I think it's a bad idea for them to expect sanctions have been lifted and things are opening up again and people are going to go do exactly what they had been doing before. It's way too soon for that. I don't think that the normal, quote unquote, that everybody is chasing is going to it's not going to happen overnight. I mean, we're probably not going to see things get back to any semblance of normalcy until well into 2022.
Yeah. Well, and to argue with myself, I was frustrated with the Dune director for throwing such a hissy fit about only releasing in theaters, because it's, at the time that he was so upset, there was no end in sight, you know what I mean? And we still don't really know how the variants are going to play out, and what the whole situation is going to be like in a couple of months. So yeah, I could see your point. That makes sense. But
well, my city just stepped up their corona threat level from like yellow to orange. So yeah, my city at the very least seems to be worried about the variant. But at the same time, like, I also think it's very strange that Hollywood seems to be so insistent on it's over, let's get back to the way that things were. Like, there is no ramp up, there is no, or ramp down. Like, I've seen a lot of things with, reviewers and critics and things like that, where a lot of the movies that are coming out, especially from like WB, they're not doing press screenings in digital format anymore. So like, if you want to see the film as a member of the press, you have to go to a physical screening. But they are also not requiring like masks or any kind of protocols at those physical, like, so it's almost just like they flip the switch and expected everybody else to be able to just flip that switch right along with them.
Yeah,
I think that is the wrong approach. Now, whether or not you require people to wear masks, whether or not you want, that's a whole different story. But for something as global as this pandemic has been, I don't think it's fair to just flip a switch and say, in the month of June, we were doing this, but come July 1st, everything switches back to this. And it's like, no, it should be like, okay, we're gonna by September, like you give people time to grow into the idea that things are going back to quote unquote normal, instead of thrusting it upon them and almost punishing people if they don't want to do that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that theaters, their big concern is that a lot of executives, Warner Brothers specifically, like they used COVID not to their benefit because it hurt them overall, but they used it as a strategy to propel HBO Max and to prop it up with via an edict from AT&T. I think that theater chains somewhat panicked because it's like, we've seen what happened, like GameStop. GameStop is in the middle of they're either going to crash and burn or they're going to reinvent based on digital distribution. Services like Game Pass are really threatening the in-person kind of model. And I think that theaters saw digital take a huge step that it had not taken before COVID, and forcing everyone, you know what I mean, for the right reasons, but everyone being forced at home for a year, it changed habits. Like it could be the thing that knocks the majority of theaters completely out. Even now, we don't know. They've survived to this point, but like you said, I think it has the panic in them.
I don't know. There's people are able, with the flexibility of digital distribution, the consumer is now able to decide where they want to put their money, and more importantly than where, but like when I am spending this money. Yeah. Like if I want to watch, like say this was 6 months ago and I was like, you know what, I really do want to watch Wonder Woman 84. Like, okay, fine. So I got a month of HBO Max for $15, so I can watch Wonder Woman 84, but I can also watch everything else in the HBO catalog for that 30-day period if I only want to spend $15. Like, it's too good of a deal to pass up.
I bought a Fire Stick recently, and obviously we got things like the BBC iPlayer, which and a few of the other like ITV, which I know you guys probably don't know any of that, but it's just like normal television apps which are free anyway, and I can stream stuff for normal television if I wanted to. And then I've obviously got your Netflixes, and I've paid for Netflix, paid for Disney, and I paid for Amazon. That's all I pay for, and I actually paid for Disney twice, 2 years now. I've just paid for it annually, so it's done once. Actually, maybe you should start doing that with Amazon, because you can do that with Amazon. You never.
Well, but there's always savings too if you pay annually instead.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, but that's all I pay for now. So even if I paid for Disney, Amazon, and Netflix monthly, that's like no more than £30 a month, which was what I was paying anyway, plus the Sky. So, but I don't know. I mean, it's got the flexibility, but I think, so to come back to what we even started with this conversation was talking about the movies. I do think they need to stop it, and they need to go back to the theaters and stop putting it online. I understand that we're in the middle of, or middle ending of this COVID thing, or I know there's more and more different variants, but we're not going to get into science of all that now. But people want to get back to normality, though. I know there's a confidence thing, though, because some people aren't confident to go back to normality. But I mean, legally, over here in the UK, in England, because different rules in Wales and Ireland and Scotland. But on Monday, no longer had to legally wear masks when you were going out. And I have noticed in the last 5 or 6 days, more and more people not wearing masks. But I don't think it's COVID. I think it's confidence in actually people not having a go at people for wearing masks. I don't because it's personal choice. And so that confidence to probably go into crowded places like cinemas and trains and things like that, I don't know, because I've not done that in the last 5 or 6 days. I will be going on a train tomorrow, so I'm curious to see what it's like. But I think it's a lot of confidence. The confidence is probably to do with COVID, but it's probably the confidence of what other people think of you. So how long is it going to be for that confidence to return? Probably could be towards the end of this year or next year. And that could be in line with things like you're saying about HBO, saying that it's a 1 year thing. So I definitely think that there's a combination of different reasons why people aren't confident into returning to theaters.
But I honestly think that part of this is also just a natural stage of technological evolution. I mean, we moved away from VHS to DVD. We moved away from DVD to Blu-ray. Like, this kind of thing happens on a regular basis. So I don't understand why, instead of trying to find a way into like this streaming bracket, like I don't understand why theaters are so resistant as opposed to trying to get
they're
ahead
losing
of
their
it.
money. They're losing
No,
their
I get that, but like they're not innovating. Like they're not doing anything to try to innovate. They are doing everything that they can to try to go back to the way that things were.
Maybe.
And I think once we take a step forward, it is very, very difficult to get people to move backward.
Maybe
absolutely.
theaters need to do what actually all the streaming platforms done. The trouble is the theaters are very much kind of middle people, aren't they? They get the studios to give them content they put out there. Maybe the theaters need to go, actually, hold on a minute, we need to go and create our own studios.
I don't think they're going to go that far.
Well, I mean, why not? Like, they get their own exclusive content. Like, it's not on any platforms. So,
well, and I think everyone is afraid of becoming Tower Records, and but no one is doing anything different
to not become Tower Records, right?
Yeah, they're just watching the train coming, going, I don't like the train.
Yeah. So. Now, listen, I used to work at a movie theater, and at the time that I worked at a movie theater, I worked at the Burbank AMC, which at the time was the second largest AMC in the entire country. That was I was working at a movie theater when digital projection became a thing. So at the time, they were very worried because they were like, eventually, we're not even going to need a lot of our staff anymore because we won't need a projectionist because there is no need to cut film, to splice film together, to deal with the reels, to do any of the physical labor that came with projection technology versus like it's a digital projector. So you literally flick a button and the movie starts. So movie theaters have done this transition before. So that's what bugs me. It's like, I don't understand why you're not trying to get ahead of this technology versus trying to pull people back. It's not going to work if you're trying to get people to come backward. It never works that way.
Yeah.
So I don't want movie theaters to die, but like they have got to do something to innovate instead of just yelling at everyone else for doing the digital route. Like they've got to get in on the digital route some kind of way.
Yeah, well, I think they were on their way to kind of trying to make it more of an experience with dine-in theaters coming back.
Yes.
But I think COVID kicked them in the woohoo. And they're at a disadvantage. Like they were trying to acclimate, but yeah, anyway, it's interesting. I'm curious how it's all going to pan out.
Yeah, I don't like that it comes across to me when I see stuff like this. All I can see is like all these theater owners are whining. You are whining and you are complaining to the movie theaters. You're complaining to anyone that'll listen. You're releasing these statements, but it's like, what are you actually doing to combat this? You are relying on these people to be your lifeblood, which on the one hand, they have to be. But at the same time, like if streaming is how things are happening, then you should be trying to buy rights with these streaming services. You should be like, they have, what they call Fathom events, right? Where you can watch Met Opera at the movie theater in your local hometown because you obviously can't fly to New York and actually go to the Met Theater to watch opera. So like you have a means to do these kinds of streaming things. Like, why don't you do more of that? Why don't you reach out instead of fighting with Warner Brothers? Why don't you reach out to them and be like, yo, okay, so like you broadcast shit on HBO Max. Like, how can we set up a relationship so that we can also broadcast HBO Max to the, like, maybe we'll do like weekly events. Like, hey, this week we're doing an HBO Max showing of blah, blah, blah movie. Why can't you do that?
Yeah, I think it's hard. I am kind of the reverse. I have less trust in the movie studios than in the theater owners. And I could see the paradox. I think movie studios are sharks who pretend to be lambs.
Of course they are.
They pretend to be very altruistic, but they will cut your head off if they'll sell another dozen tickets.
Yeah. And see, the thing is, when I was at the theater, they used to tell us all the time. Now, maybe this was a lie, but they used to tell us that they didn't make any money off the tickets.
Yeah.
That they made all their money off the concessions.
Yeah. Well, and in the US, sorry, man, we are really on this one. But
I was just saying, like,
it's a big topic, though. It's a big topic.
Well, in the US, the cut is much worse for theaters. Abroad, like there's a different split, and I think it's anyway. But yeah, it's just an interesting topic.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, we could probably carry on for another 2 hours just talking about this. So we'll bring it to a close, and we'll just take a quick break, and we'll be back in a moment.
Hey, this is Chris.
And Lance.
Asking you to check out our podcast, Comic Book Keepers.
Each episode features one hero, villain, team, or series.
Learn history behind a wide variety of comic book characters and creators.
Get recommendations on what storylines to read.
Uncover how characters were created.
Highlight adaptations in media and answer comic fandom's what-if questions.
You can find us on all major streaming platforms or on most social media at CBKcast.
And remember, keep your friends close,
but your comic books closer.
I'm Agent Mobius, by the way. Are you taking me somewhere to kill me? No, that's where you just were. I'm taking you someplace to talk. Well, I don't like to talk, but you do like to lie, which you just did. As we both know, you love to talk. How long have you been here? I don't know, it's hard to say. You know, time passes differently here in the TVA. What does that mean?
And we're back. So for our second half of the episode, we have moved on from news to talking about Loki season 1 on Disney Plus.
So, Loki season 1, based on characters created by Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and Larry Lieber from Marvel Comics. This series was created by Michael Waldron. It was directed by Kate Herron, who is not returning for the second season. It stars Tom Hiddleston, Gugu Mbatha-Raw, Winumi Masaku, Eugene Cordero, Tara Strong, Owen Wilson, Sophia DiMartino, Sasha Lane, Jack Veal, Deobia Opari, Richard E. Grant, and Jonathan Majors.
So before we jump into the review, like Loki, Tom Hiddleston was in a variety of movies before we even got to this, starting with 2011's Thor. Showed up again in
Terrible
Avengers
film.
2012. Well, I think the first two are fairly terrible. Anyway, Avengers 2012, which in
I like
hindsight,
Avengers.
I think it was great at the time.
Yeah,
But I
it
don't
didn't
think
age
it's-
well at
But
all.
I don't think it's aged
Yeah.
well. Like
Well-
when it first came out, I was so excited. I literally and even when I walked out, I was so buzzed. But
Oh, no, man.
on rewatching,
Yeah, no.
it's not aged as well. But
It's
anyway,
got some classic moments.
Yeah, it does.
Doth
It
mother
does.
know you weareth her drapes? I mean, come on.
and then we returned to Loki in Thor: The Dark World, which is even worse.
The
than the
worst
first
of
Thor.
all the MCU films, y'all.
Yeah,
For real.
Hirsch.
and then we were back for the best one, Thor: Ragnarok in 2017,
That one
which
was pretty
actually
good.
literally was like they reinvented the Thor franchise.
Yes.
It was just so good.
Amazing what a good haircut and not dying Chris Hemsworth eyebrows would do for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then Tom Hiddleston returned for a few moments in Avengers: Infinity War, which was almost like his redeeming arc. Really, like he comes
Hey,
to
come
a
back and
different
be in
part of
this
his
movie
story.
so you can die.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but he obviously knew what was. They obviously lined up some sort of
Yeah,
return for him. Like so, then he came back again in Avengers: Endgame 2019, again for literally 2 or 3 minutes. But before we talk about Loki, the TV series, what I loved about his scenes in Endgame was I loved that these scenes followed Avengers 2012, like that, like literally, them wrapping up, chatting, and it was more casual, like Tony Stark and everyone, and just the casualness of it all, and the stuff that you wouldn't really want to see in a film, like, but just them sort of mopping up, and I thought this is pretty cool actually, that you've gone back and you've kind of jumped in after the first Avengers movie finished, and you're just sort of watching Loki go down the elevator, and
It's
they're
as
like
close
sort of,
to like a behind the scenes moment.
yeah, it's
as you
kind
can
of
get.
yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like when we watched Endgame, and I was like, this is quite a nice sort of behind the, like you say, behind the scenes moment. And I loved it when I watched Endgame. Suddenly Loki picks up the Tesseract and just disappears. I was like, okay, that wasn't planned. And like literally, they literally didn't even bother when they went back and returned all the Infinity Stones. It was the one thing they left out, and everyone at the time was like, okay, well, you've pretty much, by the time Endgame had finished, you'd pretty much put everything back. I know Steve Rogers decided to not come forward, but we all made the assumption that he'd stayed as sort of almost undercover over the years, that Peggy had never let anyone know, including what we assume was in the second Captain America film, that when Peggy passed away, that she didn't even disclose to Steve that, she was probably that he was probably sitting at home as an old man, which we've all made that assumption. Was he alive the whole time? Which, you know, but he just stayed as a secret, which I'm hoping was the case. I'm hoping that it was all a secret, that old Steve Rogers was sitting at home knowing he couldn't come visit his wife in hospital because he knew his younger self was there. That's what I assumed. But at no point have they ever gone and mopped up Loki, which is really, you know, a nice transition into Loki season 1. So when I heard about Loki season 1 coming out, I didn't make the assumption that it was going to be that they would follow this variant. There was a lot of rumors about whether it was going to be Kid Loki or what was it going to be. So I think it'd be nice just to sort of what our initial thoughts were on what we thought it was going to be versus what actually did happen. I mean, just quick summary, Stephen. What's your sort of, what did you think it was going to be about versus what we got?
Yeah, I thought, honestly, because he was stranded with the Tesseract, he was just going to keep leaping to the wrong place, trying to get back where he had some kind of power. But that's what I thought.
And did you enjoy season 1 overall, or what's your overall thoughts on season 1?
I really loved it. There's it doesn't have my favorite episode, but it's my favorite story. Falcon Winter Soldier probably has 2 of my favorite episodes, but overall Loki I just loved it. The sci-fi action adventure, it was just fun. And it had, my favorite kind of humor is just like outlandish. And it even had a little bit of that, you know what I mean? So.
Oh yeah. Jasmine, what do you think? But sort of, you know, your initial thoughts going in, what do you think it was going to be versus what we got?
I actually thought that when he went back with the Tesseract, I thought we were going to get just this completely ridiculously chaotic thing, with no real structure, no nothing. Like, kind of like Steven said, like he's just jumping around from time to time. So I was very, very surprised that like they immediately just squashed that feeling, because as soon as he jumped to Mongolia, the TVA was like right there immediately. Yep. Like before, like he barely had a chance to say 3 words to the people that he encountered before the TVA stepped in and was like, "Whoa, you don't belong here." So I think that sort of quick reining in of like fans' imagination of what happened was a really smart move. And it therefore set the tone for me and my expectations for the rest of the series, versus like after Endgame, in my head, I'm like, oh, it'd be hilarious if Loki goes back and he runs into dinosaurs. Like, I totally see something like that happening. So it kind of expecting like this time traveling adventure, sort of like a Quantum Leap, but not.
Yeah.
But they definitely
like the opposite of Quantum Leap.
Yeah, but like they quashed it immediately, and I think that was a really, really smart thing to do.
I think because he died, and then we heard there was going to be a Loki show. It kind of hadn't really considered what they were going to do with the Loki that disappeared. I don't think I really put 2 and 2 together. And then I heard that Tom Hiddleston was going to be in it. I was like, well, isn't he dead? Like, haven't they killed Loki? Like, it didn't really ring to me that they were going to go and grab this older Loki. I kind of thought going in it was going to be, because in the comics Loki has been a child, he's been a woman, and I thought, well, maybe this is going to be like Kid Loki. And then when I heard Tom Hiddleston was going to be in it, I thought, well, maybe it's going to be Kid Loki, but Tom Hiddleston's going to narrate it, a bit like that
the Supernatural thing.
No. A bit like, you know, the Big Bang Theory, that spin-off, Sheldon.
Young Sheldon.
Yeah. So I thought it was going to be a bit like that. So I was like, okay, well, maybe that's what they're going to do. Because I know they're gearing up towards Young Avengers. That's what it feels like anyway. So I thought, well, maybe that's where they're going with this. Maybe it's going to be Tom Hiddleston no longer is kind of as on screen, but maybe he's going to narrate young Loki. And then when they went back to those, when the show opened and on Avengers 2012, I was like, oh shit, this is the Loki we're getting. I was like, okay. I was like, right, okay, so we're not getting Kid Loki. We're going to go. I knew where they were going with this. I thought, okay, this is going to be the Loki that managed to grab the Tesseract and disappear. So I was like, okay, this is cool. And then overall, in terms of the show, one of the things I would say, which is very different from what I'd said on Falcon and WandaVision. Definitely WandaVision. I had to watch it weekly because I wanted to know, because it was the mystery. And I know Loki had mystery, but with the mystery of WandaVision, I was so much more hooked with WandaVision than I was with this. WandaVision, I was like, I've got to know what's going to happen next week. I've got to know. Like, I wanted to know. I was like, what's going on? I was just so like, it's this 50s drama thing. I was like, I know it's not real, but who's controlling it? I wanted to know. Like, it was driving me mental. Like, and the little voices that were creeping the radio. And was it Wanda that was doing it, or was it someone else? And by the end of it was Wanda. And although she'd been manipulated slightly,
it was Agatha all along.
No, well, it was Wanda, and then she was manipulated by Agatha. But yeah, again, it was Mephisto. It's Mephisto. Like, so I was just like, the whole time I was like coming up with my own theories, and then I was hoping. Then when the guy, the Quicksilver actor from the X-Men movie showed up, I was like, oh, they're bringing in mutants. It's finally happening. And I was like, every week I was so buzzed. But with this, I would say, I watched the first episode when it came out, and I loved it. Like, but it didn't give me the whole, I need to watch this next week. I need to watch this next week. So I didn't watch all 5 episodes weekly. I actually sat down and watched all 5 in one go. So I watched the first on week 1, and then I've got loads of stuff going on anyway, but I didn't feel the need to come in weekly, which not a criticism on the show, but there was a mystery element, but the mystery element didn't drive me to tune in weekly like WandaVision did. And I'm not saying that either show is better than the other. I enjoyed them both, but for the mystery element to me on this show wasn't as sort of powerful as WandaVision was.
The pull wasn't as powerful on this show.
Yeah, the pull, yeah. I enjoyed it. I think it was a brilliant show. So in terms of what I thought was great was, because obviously Tom Hiddleston as Loki had a lot of character development throughout those movies, even through the bad 4 films and the Avengers movies and stuff like that. And we got to see him going from the villain to where he died in Endgame. Infinity War. You could see he'd really come round to him and Thor becoming like brothers. And that was one thing I thought, I don't want them to undo any of that. And actually, by the end of episode 1, he wasn't the same guy that died, but he'd pretty much become that way. So I think we needed that full episode to bring him full circle. So whilst it was a long first episode to get him there, I think it was a necessary episode, because otherwise you wouldn't want to spend 2 or 3 seasons now getting this Loki to where, he died in Infinity War. So I think it took a full hour to get us to Infinity War Loki, although, like I say, he's probably a few steps away from it. But I definitely would say by the end of the season, we're seeing Infinity War Loki back, like in terms of his caring for other people. Especially that last, we won't talk about that just yet, but that last few moments when he runs back into the TVA, it felt like someone who cared. So anyway, so my overall thoughts is I actually did enjoy it, but I just didn't feel there was the same pull that I had with WandaVision.
Now, see, I think the whole didn't feel the same pull thing was actually on purpose, because Loki was the first of these new Disney Plus series to actually get confirmed for a second season, whereas WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, to a certain extent, are seemingly one and done. And I think Loki didn't have that pull because it was always meant to be serial. Like, it was always meant to be the kind of thing that you come back to at some point. And so I think that was sort of vindicated at the very, in the end credits of the 6th episode, where they're like, oh, by the way, we'll be back for a season 2.
Actually, we haven't written this down, but WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Loki, they're all very different styles. But what would you guys say in terms of rewatching any of those shows? Like, which one, if I sat you all down and said, right, you've got 3 shows to choose from, which one would you go to rewatch?
Loki.
Yeah, I think I would too. And honestly, I totally get WandaVision. I got caught up in all of the speculation, just like you did. But I will say, when I watched Loki, it's because I wanted to watch Loki. I didn't care how it connected to the MCU. I didn't care about any of that other stuff. I wanted to see how his relationship with Sylvie evolved. I wanted to see what would happen with Agent B-15, because there were so many compelling characters, and they were all really well acted. Tom Hiddleston had more to do in this series than he had in
Any
all
of the
other
movies.
movies.
That's a nice
Like,
little segue
he
you've
was-
just set up there, Stephen. That's a nice little segue you've set up for me for my next point. So actually on Instagram, I did this deliberately. I set up a thing on Thursday where I dropped who is your favorite Loki?
Mm-hmm.
And
Alligator.
there was a hell of a lot of comments for the alligator. There was a hell of a lot.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And however, they were not. But what I would say is coming in second, which I'm sure he would be not very happy about. Richard E. Grant actually came in second on a lot of that on the comments. So the alligator got he got most of the comments, and then Richard E. Grant
bit off someone's hand. Like,
I know. A Loki hand.
yeah. He bit off President Loki's hand.
Yeah.
So.
But then one of my favorite parts of the whole show is President Loki just looking at his stump.
And then screaming.
It's like he's so good, man.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I know that's just obviously Tom Hiddleston, not his twin brother, but Tom Hiddleston again to show the range of the actor. But what's your favorite Lokis? Like
Alligator, like the
alligator.
Because it was so unexpected. Like because I did not watch this on time. I waited until the Tuesday before the final episode. I binged the first 5 and then I woke up early that morning and I watched the 6th episode. So like I purposely avoided all of the Loki stuff. So I had no idea that there was going to be a freaking alligator. And when we got to that sequence where there's and the fact that the other Lokis could talk to the alligator Loki and Tom Hiddleston like couldn't, like it was just one of those things where I was like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen and I love it. I love it so much. And especially like the sort of antagonistic relationship that boastful Loki had with the alligator where he's like, well, at least I got here because I did something bad, whereas you just ate the wrong person's cat. And I'm just like, oh my God, I love this alligator Loki. Like I don't even know why.
Yeah.
What about you, Stephen? What was your favorite other Loki? Not Tom Hiddleston. Well, not main Tom Hiddleston or variant, whatever he was.
Honestly, that whole the episode dominated by them, that was just a blast. But Richard E. Grant, the classic
Spice World.
Yeah.
Classic Loki, as they call him.
Well, and what I loved about him, he I don't know, man. He captured the Jack Kirby era Loki. I never found him really compelling, but Richard E. Grant completely captured it and made it compelling. Like he was funny and charming and off-putting all at once. And I watched some interviews with Richard E. Grant, and he speculates that he's still out there, but I think that's because he wants to keep playing the role. And he's trying to pitch a classic Loki and Gator Loki spinoff.
He was also very disappointed that his suit didn't have muscles.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah, man. Well, I loved that character.
Yeah.
So, and it's like somebody else mentioned, I think it was New Rockstars was talking about how they've worked in the old spandex versions of these characters, and it was just kind of fun.
Oh yeah, because they did that with in WandaVision as well, didn't they? The sort of this in the Halloween episode, brought in the classic, and when I saw the photo, because I did unfortunately see a few of these photos, I did have it ruined for me. That's the only trouble with not keeping up weekly. I did have it ruined about Richard E. Grant and
Mark. You got to learn to start muting hashtags and stuff. That's what I did.
Well, the trouble is because I obviously post most of the social media, it's just so difficult to avoid. Maybe I just need to watch weekly when these things happen. But anyway, the trouble is when you get a show like Stranger Things, when Netflix just drop it all on a Friday, I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake! I had plans this weekend.
No, you didn't. You had the wrong plans then.
The trouble with Netflix is they don't always tell you when they're going to drop stuff. I know they have said Stranger Things out in October, but they probably just won't tell you when. It'll just be released. And I'm like, great. I had other things to do. Damn it. Anyway, my favorite Loki, it's got to be Sylvie. I loved Sylvie.
Oh yeah.
I thought Sylvie probably stole the show. She was so good. And I know it was a weird love interest to have between her
It was
Mobius
brilliant.
described
Brilliant.
it perfectly, though,
Yep.
when he was like, "You are so narcissistic that you literally fell in love with yourself."
Oh,
Yeah.
And like that line stuck with me for the entire series, where I was like,
Yeah.
"Holy shit, he's right!" Like Loki literally fell in love with another version of Loki.
I love that though that she didn't want to be called Loki, which means she doesn't really want to be associated with that type of Loki,
Mhm.
which says to me that she doesn't have that same.
She's
Well,
the only one
she-
that had like her own personality.
She has an element of selfishness because obviously her own selfishness may have just gone and created, the big bad of Phase 4, but she generally did seem to care, although she was driven by revenge. But I don't know. I enjoyed her screen chemistry with Tim Hiddleston, and I thought their chemistry between both of them was really good. They did pick a really good partner. I don't know what the casting process was, whether they had to do a couple of scenes together or anything like that, but they chose really well in getting her because those two had so much screen time. The scene between those two on the train, where she wakes up and Tom Hiddleston's drunk singing away, such a good moment. So
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know,
So-
before
so-
you switch, what I loved about the actress Sophia DiMartino was she is a new mom, and so she was still
the
breastfeeding when they
costume,
were
yeah.
shooting. And like her showing how the costume designer cleverly made it so that she could literally like unfasten her costume very quickly to pump like her breast milk. I was like, that is amazing, and that is wonderful, and that is lovely. And I'm so glad we have moved away from like female heroes and female villains wearing like skin tight spandex with no give and like 7-inch heels. It's like,
well, they did something with
practical stuff.
Yeah.
they did something with what's her name? Supergirl.
Melissa Benoist.
Yeah, Melissa Benoist, where they've changed her, they're giving her trousers.
Yes.
So obviously, because they film in Vancouver, and although it looks all lovely and sunny and hot, I imagine
Cold as
Vancouver
shit.
probably. Yeah, I was going to say that. I imagine Vancouver doesn't have a hot day ever. So I think for the first 3 seasons or something, or 4 seasons, had to wear a skirt like the typical Supergirl image. But actually, do you know what? Those trousers look really cool. Like, I think she looks really cool in that new getup. So I understand why they didn't do it initially, because it was probably would have been breaking from the mold. But they should have probably brought those trousers in a little bit sooner. So I
love it. I mean, and you even saw that like in WandaVision, her Scarlet Witch costume, the new version was much more like combat ready than the original version. Also,
the
the
Halloween
same in Black
version,
Widow. Like they kind of moved her away from the skin tight onesies that she had on in Iron Man 2, and like she had on a much more like combat ready suit in Black Widow. So I appreciate the move away from that kind of stuff. Also, like, it is completely impractical. Like, I know you guys don't wear heels. I don't wear heels that often because
you wear
6'1".
Miles Morales combat ready shoes.
Yes, I do. I do. But like, I don't wear heels too often because I'm already 6'1". So I put on heels and I become like 6'4", 6'5". So like, it makes no sense to me that these women would ever wear like, oh, I'm a villain. Yeah, I'm gonna be a villain in 6-inch heels. No, the fuck you're not. Like, you ain't gonna be like, you can't fight anybody in 6-inch heels. What are you talking about? Like, anyway, I love that, and I love that little behind the scenes peek into that and how they just sort of built real life into the character design.
You've just reminded me of Bryce Dallas Howard. Like, she runs in heels.
Oh, don't get me started on Jurassic World. That was the whole concept where I was like, are you shitting me? Like, there's no fucking way. Like, there's no way.
She fought to wear those heels. The director didn't want her to wear the heels. She fought to wear the heels. Like, Steven's like, what are you talking about? I wear heels all day long.
Yeah. And twice on Sunday.
Yes, you have your church heels, and then you have your after church heels.
Oh wow.
Yeah, my potluck heels.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Like, so yeah, I think that's a nice move into what's your other favorite character who's not a Loki in this show. Go on, Steven, hit us up.
Okay, I'm gonna mess up the name, I'm sure, but Wunmi Masako, the Agent B-15. I thought she was awesome. She's just she wasn't like it was really smart because she's the first real agent that gives him flack, like, and is like they use her to really express what the TVA thinks of variants, and then showing her that she's a variant, and then having her be the one that sort of facilitates the, you know what I mean, the the denouement at the end, like it was really smart. She was kind of the heart of the movement of the plot, and she's a really good actress. And I bought that she was tough, and I bought that she had a heart. I liked her a lot. So
I'm the same. I loved her. It was a toss up for me between her and Gugu. And I like, if I had to pick just one, I'm definitely gonna give Would Me the edge, because just like, also she was like not in the comics, so she was a completely original character made up for the series. So she had a lot more leeway, and she was much more of an unknown quantity, because there was no frame of reference for her character. But B15, like the scene toward the end, I can't remember if it's episode 5 or 6, but toward the end where B15 is like in a cell and Gugu is talking to her, and she's like, why are you doing this? And she's like, well, like, basically she's like, the show must go on. And she's like, no, but you saw that the timekeepers are not real. Like, the whole interaction between the two of them after the curtain was lifted was one of my favorite scenes in the entire series. So I loved the two of them so much, because to me, it's like, I have always liked the contrast of people who are part of a system, and then they realize like the system is broken. And so they kind of break away, and they have to come to terms with the thing that they believed in, like with their whole heart, is fake or it's bullshit. But so to see that play out so differently between two characters, where it's like with B15, she's like, this sucks, like they're not even real, like what the hell are we doing, versus Gugu, who's just like, well, I mean, yeah, they're not real, but somebody must have put them there for a reason, like what we're doing can't be all for naught. So it was like the same dilemma, but both of those characters took completely opposite tracks in regard to once that was revealed to them. I absolutely loved that dynamic in this first season of Loki.
My favorite character who's not Loki is Owen Wilson.
He was awesome too.
I honestly, just so good. Like, he obviously, Mobius, I don't know anything about any comic book character for Mobius, but I think Owen Wilson, I know he is your sort of comedian, Wedding Crashers, sort of Starsky and Hutch guy. He's the Joker. I know he's been in loads of things like Zoolander and all the rest of it, and there's a lot of that crap I don't like. And I mean, it's okay, but I'm not.
Listen, I will not tolerate any Zoolander slander on this podcast.
I don't like hate any of it, but I don't love that much of it. Like, I like Night at the Museum, and not everything he's in I love. But the reason why I'm building that up is because there's one film that I really loved him in, and I wish he'd have done more in this genre, was Behind Enemy Lines. It came out in 2001. And that was such a serious film. And there's just like, I know he probably had the odd one-liner, but it was such a different type of film for him. And I remember going to the theaters and watching this, and I was like, this is fucking amazing. Like, this is such a good film. And then I've never seen him do anything near as serious since. And it's literally been like slapstick after slapstick after slapstick. So I know Loki wasn't overly serious, but it was such a different type of thing for him. And I know he doesn't normally do television. So to see Owen Wilson come in and not just do television, but actually do something that's serious. And I would say he did have comical moments in it. I'm not going to lie on that. But I liked the chemistry again between him and Tom Hiddleston. And it was the kind of show was initially split where it was him and Tom Hiddleston at the beginning, and then Tom went off and
found Sylvie.
And became with Sylvie. Yeah. And then we had to sort of follow Mobius separately, which I liked. When they got rid of him from the timeline, I was like, no. I was like, you didn't just get rid of like one of the best characters in this show. I'll be honest, at that point I cheated, went on to IMDb, and I was like, oh good, he's in all 6 episodes. I was like no. I was like, you literally just killed off one of the best characters in the show. I was like, okay, I have to find out. I was like, I know I'm binging this and I'm being massively impatient because I'm literally going to see it in another hour if he's back. And but I love the scene where him and Loki are sitting in the like around the table, I don't know, like in the time place, and he's like, they're having a chat, and he's like, you're very clever, Like, and then he like runs off, and I love how he has like a bet with Loki. He's like, "You want to have a bet? You want to have a bet? Yeah, gentleman's bet. Yeah, you know, like, and like, there's no real bet. It's like, you know, but I love that moment of seriousness behind them. But then obviously they come back with comedy where he's driving that stupid car, like on the end of the world or the end of the universe or whatever, and
end of time,
end of time, whatever you want to call it, and it was just so good. Like, honestly, like I'd love to know if he got paid more than Tom Hiddleston to be in the show. Like, I would bet he did. Like,
well, no, only because Tom Hiddleston has such a massive following, where
they got paid the same. They got paid the same.
Yeah, I loved Mobius's arc overall. Yeah. Like, if I had to pick a character whose arc I like the best, it's definitely his, because when he was presented with something that didn't jive with what he thought was always the case, he considered it. Right? Like, he didn't believe Loki immediately, obviously, but after he got pruned, it was kind of like, oh shit, you know what? You're right. Like, I get it. Like, so he's another character that kind of took a different route, where he was like, this is all bullshit. Like, we really need to find a way to get out from under all of this. And so I really enjoy it. And I really hope, like, if there is a second season, like, I really hope he gets that jet ski. Damn it. Like, I hope he gets the jet ski that he so badly wants.
That's got to be a series finale, though.
Yeah.
What do you guys think, like, worked or didn't work about the show?
Steven?
Yeah, go on, Steven.
Yeah. Honestly, so I'll start with the things that didn't work, and these are really light. But overall,
he's going to pull out a long list.
I know. Well, overall, I think everything that I wish had been in the series could have been addressed with a longer series. Like, 6 episodes was concise and awesome, and it told the story. So it probably was the right number of episodes. But, like, things that I wish had been in there. Well, actually, let me say first, the character deaths were. None of them had any weight for me. As soon as Mobius died, for like half a second, I was like, well, I mean, maybe. But then Loki died, and I'm like, oh yeah, they're both fine somewhere. You know what I mean? And it's like, nobody, there just wasn't any weight to that. And the truth of it is, I think they knew that. I think that's why there was that mid credit scene. Yeah, just to be like, we know, so here's this.
Just kidding.
Yeah. But it would have been nice if there had been some other kind of threat that was a little more ominous than just knowing they were fine. The other thing is, I really love Jonathan Majors. And to only have been in like one of the episodes, I thought he left a really big impact. But the only downside was the kind of crazy, jokey, like over the top kind of bad guy. Like, he wasn't silly, but he had an off kilter sense of humor. I just felt like that characterization has been done several times, and I just really wanted to see him do something that was so like very him. And there was some of that, but I just would have liked to seen a wholly unique, like, different villain, because he is an imposing, like, figure, voice, presence, and he's a really good actor too.
Stephen, let me tell you about this film that's coming out in 2023 that you might be very interested in watching.
Yeah. Well, I want to start Lovecraft Country, but I was in the middle of so many other things.
He's really good in that. It's so completely different. So, like, I'm the opposite. I came from like Lovecraft Country first. Yeah. And then to see him in this role, it made me really happy, because almost for the exact opposite of what you just said. Like, I love that they didn't go that route. I love that he was not just like this big angry black man. Like, he was so charming and like disarming in the way that he talked to Loki and Sylvie. Like, I loved that. I loved the nonchalance. I loved look, here's the deal. Like, I already know everything that's going to happen. And I'm telling you, like, if you kill me, then shit's going to hit the fan. So I leave it up to you. Like, I'm not going to fight you. So if that's what you want to do, then we can do that. But I'm telling you what is going to happen if you do. So I kind of loved the omniscient presence that he had. but also that he was so whimsical, and it also kind of subverted my like expectations, because by the time I got to episode 6, I was 100% on board. Like, it's gonna be a Loki variant. Like, it has to be, right? Like the person that they're chasing has to be a Loki variant. So I'm really glad that they didn't take that easy out.
Me too.
That.
Yeah.
But like, I will say that this depth of sort of character, well, not necessarily character, but like depth of acting with Jonathan Majors, like, I am now super excited for Ant-Man and Quantumania, because like I honestly, Ant-Man and Thor until Ragnarok, like those are just the franchises that are part of the MCU that I don't give a shit about. But after seeing this Kang variant in Loki, I am all in on the version of Kang that we're gonna get in Ant-Man, because I'm assuming it's gonna be awful.
Yeah. Well, and so I think what you've Serenity, the film continuation of
Firefly.
Yeah. So you'll be able to pronounce his name, I think. Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Well, Ejiofor,
yeah. So the way that sort of villain, that I think that's something that's where I was kind of hoping he would be, because the operative in Serenity was very disarming, because like he while you're sliding down his sword, he's talking to you like you could have been friends in another life. He's like, there's no dishonor in this death. You're fine. It'll be over in a second. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. And honestly, like I said, Jonathan Majors did great. I just, you know what I mean? I think I'm
now, in the grand scheme of things, what you're saying is like you wanted a different type of big bad at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I also like I watched a ton of Joss Whedon stuff, so like it gave me some echoes of Ultron, which Ultron, his voice in that film was really unique and good, and I actually thought Jonathan Majors was better. Anyway, this is nitpicking. I enjoyed it, but we're talking about things that, and then the last thing, and this is actually something that like I hope they address down the line, but with him being the God of Mischief, I just would have loved to see him be more mischievous. Like,
right?
Like not even, it's like in the MCU in general, he's always been a little more malicious. And I think that they kind of have begun to recognize that, because like even in this series, they reference times when he did mischievous things.
Yeah.
But it's like they don't want to take the screen time to depict it. But like, I don't know. I think it would be interesting to add that extra layer. As far as, and I've been talking a while, but as far as things I liked, just the characters. The story was perfectly fine. It was science fiction. It's my jam, as Jasmine says. But like what really sold it for me were the characters. And I mean, I could go on and on about the performances. It was like, okay, Friends is not like the greatest written show, but the performances in that show elevated it to make it appealing to a lot of people. Seinfeld, same way. And then also like, anyway, I could go on and on, but like this show, there were just so many like incredible like characters that had different perspectives and responded differently to things. And I really enjoyed the different performances, and the writing was fun.
What about you, Jasmine? Anything that worked or didn't work?
I mean, I thought it all kind of worked. I'm glad that we got a series where Loki was not the villain, where we were introduced to an entirely new entity in the TVA, Time Variant Association, or whatever they're called. So I thought that was a good thing to have us focus on, because I like kind of like what we were saying when we were talking about our verses at the very beginning, like Loki does not seem like a planner. So to have an organization fill that role, because you can't have this sort of big story that links into the MCU, like as all their shows do, without someone that has the forethought to actually make these kinds of plans. So I really loved the TVA in general. Like I loved that there was an organization that was responsible for taking care of the chaos that sort of randomly sprung up. As far as like didn't like, I think this series kind of had a problem finding its tone. Like it was kind of serious and it was kind of funny. And then somewhere toward episode 4 and 5, when they're on the train on Renevent or whatever that planet was, it took a turn, and it was like, when we got to the romance factor, I think is kind of when, again, like the overarching, like Loki falling in love with himself, a variant version of himself. I think that's perfect for Loki. I don't disagree with that, but like they didn't have the lover chemistry that I would have expected in an actual couple. Like I thought that they had great chemistry as like two completely different people. Like I'm talking about Loki and Sylvie, two completely different people thrust together in a situation where they have to figure it out for themselves. But as far as like lovers, I never ever believed that they had that kind of chemistry. And now unfortunately, I think that's more on the two actors versus like the scripting, because it was written to perfection, but it just didn't play out as well as I would have hoped. So I would definitely say like what didn't work for me was just the chemistry between Loki and Sylvie.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
and
I was to say, I think one of the things I enjoyed actually was probably, I said it a few times as I was watching it, you know, when they kept jumping around and actually Loki and Sylvie, like whether it was on the train or earlier on, when they ended up on that other world, you know, and they, I can't remember what they called it, something Litmus 5 or wherever it was they landed. I loved all of that, and I was like, I actually said to my wife, "This is like Star Wars." Like, and I was like, "Okay, I know Disney owns Star Wars and Marvel and everything. They own everything." So I was like, I feel like this is like some deliberate thing, like that they've done to make you think of Star Wars. So that was kind of. I know in terms of what that's saying, what worked or what didn't. It's just something I enjoyed in terms of the visuals. So I just enjoyed the whole visuals of this show. Like each episode, although it was a continual story, I just loved the look and feel of each episode. So, I mean, I know, like you said, the acting was brilliant. And there was the acting overall was just phenomenal everywhere, from smaller scenes like Jonathan Mayers to, you know, to obviously Tom Hiddleston. I just loved it all. But the visuals for me were just so like, I don't know, drew me in, and just like, it was just so beautiful to look at. What didn't work for me, and I love Jonathan Mayers, but I just felt like they found the bad guy too easily. So it didn't feel anybody was, but then he wasn't really the bad guy, because even he said it, I'm not really the bad guy. So I kind of, I don't know, maybe, you know, he was kind of an obstacle, like, well, they thought.
I think they kind of wrote it to make it feel like the audience was in the head of Loki. Like, that's kind of how I felt because we get to the big bad, and as he's talking, Loki is the one that is like, okay, you're kind of making sense. Like, I'm changing my mind. Please keep talking. Whereas Sylvie was like, no. Fuck you, dude. Like, I've been on this mission and I am going to do exactly what I set out to do. And I don't care what you have to say.
Yeah.
So I think that he was used to good effect just to create the tension between Loki and Sylvie. But yeah, like when he came
in, I was excited. I was like, "No way, that's Kang!"
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah, me too. I didn't see that coming at all.
Literally, mouth just dropped, and I loved all of the scene, but it just felt too easy. Like getting past the dragon and all that. I mean, classic Loki, save the day, you know, blah blah blah. I don't know, it just felt too easy. But then maybe it's a whole 6-episode rushed formula thing. They kind of spent like 4 episodes with the setup and then 2 episodes with the build, with the ending. Like, I don't know. I don't get me wrong, I don't really like 22 episode shows, but like, I wouldn't have wanted
British.
To watch. And like, I know, but I watch a lot of your shit.
I think 8 might have been a sweet spot for this one. Like, if we had just 2 more episodes, it doesn't have to be a full 10.
Yeah.
But like, if we had 8 episodes, I think that would have been a little better.
I think maybe 8 episodes would have probably been the better thing to do. But I think that was something we were going to start talking about in a minute, so we might as well jump into it, structure and writing and stuff like that. I think we were talking about structure. I mean, I remember when Netflix and Marvel got together, Disney didn't want Netflix to do 13 episode shows. Netflix wanted to do it because that's what they did. They did 13 episode shows. I think Netflix have adapted slightly now and do release shorter series or seasons. But like if you look at things like the first season of Iron Fist and even some of the Luke Cage things, they really start to drag from episode 8.
Yeah.
So I think
13 was too many.
13 was way too many. The only show I would argue that I was happy with 13 episodes was Daredevil. So
all 3 seasons.
Oh yeah, all 3 seasons.
But as the original, that makes sense. Like it makes sense that you're setting up 4 other series from this one series, so you should have a bit more content than everybody else.
I could have watched 22 episodes of Daredevil. No, maybe not. But 13 episodes was a good point for Daredevil. But the other shows you could tell really dragged from its long episodes. So I think in terms of Loki season 1, 6 episodes was probably too short. 8 episodes would have been a sweet spot to have maybe had a little bit more time with some of these other characters, and maybe put some more obstacles in the way to get towards the season 1 big bad. So like that for me. In terms of its writing, I thought it was done very well. Had very good dialogue between many of the characters. I wouldn't say at any point did anything feel, I don't know, flat or kind of just awkward. I felt like it all flowed very well, and I think it helped to have such good casting. So what do you guys think about it?
Steven?
Sorry, I keep going like this. No, but people listening will have, yeah. Okay, so the one thing I was going to say.
Too late.
Yep. All right. See, no, but the about Kang being a little bit too easy. I think, like, I somewhat agree and I somewhat disagree. Where I disagree is, so the whole show is epitomized for me in the 2 scenes. So you have Renslayer and B-15, their conversation, and then you have Loki and Sylvie, and both of them are talking about stability in the establishment or the truth, and chaos. And those are at odds in both of those circumstances. And Kang, just like you said, Mark, he's not even the antagonist. He's the catalyst. And it's to take these 2 figures that have operated in some capacity as protagonists in different times and different roles, and put their philosophies at odds and see, what is either one right, is one wrong, and you know what I mean. I thought it was interesting. I really liked that juxtaposition, because that's a lot of times, even in the US, the last year and a half, a lot of our arguments have come from, well, do we want to stick with what we've been doing that we're familiar with, or are we going to pursue something new that's a little scarier? You know what I mean? And anyway, I just think it's interesting. But yeah, I agree. 8 episodes I think would have been awesome, but that's just because I love the show. So
I don't really have anything to add to that.
That's fine.
So
let's move on to where it fits.
This is the exciting part. So the theorizing as to where
does it fit in the MCU?
Where does it fit? Okay, so Black Widow kicked off phase 4, as said so by Disney. So does Loki fall into phase 4, or is Loki the end of phase 3? That's the question.
I think it's definitely.
It's definitely phase 4.
It's definitely. I think all these shows are phase 4. Like all these shows would have come out. Like Black Widow was meant to come out a year ago. These shows are meant to follow. These all WandaVision, Falcon, Winter Soldier. I wouldn't even say it's probably up for argument. They're all phase 4 shows. So
and that being said, I am very curious as to the direction that phase 4 is going, because I'm wondering if phase 4 is playing up to the multiverse, which clearly with the end of Loki, that's exactly what they're doing. Is the whole multiverse saga going to end with phase 4 as the way that Marvel brings the mutants into the MCU, and then phase 5 is our new introduction or reintroduction to the mutants? Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But first, like this one, to me, this film, my biggest question, or not film, this series, my biggest question is the Eternals film going to address the multiverse in any way? Because we already seen from the Eternals trailer, and I bring up the Eternals because to me, so What If is the next TV series in the sequence. Right. So Shang-Chi is the next film. But to me, Shang-Chi seems like it's going to be a film that takes place somewhere in the near past. Since it is an origin story, I don't think it is going to be in the current sort of timeline.
Well, I imagine that Shang-Chi is probably a standalone with
Yeah.
an end credit sequence.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I'm not counting Shang-Chi. So the first viable option for the multiverse to actually make an appearance would be the Eternals, which is coming out in November of this year.
Well, I think What If will be its. I think.
I can't really count What If because everything is different in What If.
Yes, it's Marvel. They'll be clever enough to link this in. They'll be clever.
I'm sure. So like, it's possible because in the Eternals trailer they do reference like, well, you know, Thanos happened, and now that Captain America is gone, who's going to take over the Avengers? Yada yada yada. So like, the Eternals takes place after all of the events of Endgame. So is the Eternals going to be the first place where we see this multiverse effect branch out into the films? Or are they going to wait and not do that until Spider-Man? Because we know that there has to be some kind of, it might not be the entire plot of Spider-Man No Way Home, but it has to be a big part.
I think it'll be teased in Eternals, and I think
that's what I'm thinking too. So I think it'll be teased in Eternals. It'll be a plot point in Spider-Man No Way Home. It will be resolved, well, semi-resolved in Doctor Strange, and then fully wrapped up in Ant-Man. So I'm thinking the multiverse is going to be a saga that goes through until 2023.
I wonder if Ant-Man and the Wasp is going to be like an Avenger, like a Captain America Civil War, like with.
It's going to have to be, I think, with the way that they have brought a Kang variant into this Loki series, Quantumania, which is our first actual introduction to Kang the Conqueror. But that, again, that's not until February of 2023. We got a long way and a lot of movies and TV shows to go between then and now. So I think it's going to be interesting, and I think
it's just made me think. You know, like we were theorizing earlier with Wakanda Forever. Could they just bring in a variant of T'Challa, like from I don't know?
They won't. They could. They won't. I think Wakanda Forever is not going to be a film where they interrupt the legacy of Chadwick Boseman in any way, shape, or form. I think they're going to sort of avoid Black Panther, or they're going to avoid T'Challa specifically in that film. When it comes to Black Panther 3, though, that's an entirely different story. So I think they're going to have the second film where it's like, this is Chadwick's legacy, yada, yada, yada. But when it comes time for the third film, Marvel is going to be back to business as usual. And I think that they will eventually recast the character, but they wanted to put some time and distance between that. So that's my guess.
Well, and honestly, I think I wouldn't be surprised, and I would actually kind of prefer it if it is similar to the way they laid threads for Thanos, and they had the Infinity Stones feature in several films, but it was not the driving force of the narrative in most of these.
Or the Infinity Stones being freaking paperweights as TVA.
Yeah, it's like I would really like it if Kang, if we didn't see the total wrap up of his story and the multiverse for 7-8 years, like, you know, phase like 6 or so. Yeah, I think that would be a really clever way to, and the truth of it is with variants, you could definitely do that, you know? But, and then the other crazy thing to think about is Secret Wars, because introducing the Skrulls, like you have people impersonating other humans, and then you have
there's a Skrull in Loki as well in the first episode. It's like did you miss that? Or
I did.
It was a tiny flick of a Skrull in the background.
I missed it, and then I watched New Rockstars.
I completely missed the Skrull.
Well,
seriously.
No. It's just a little flick and you miss it. So I wonder. So I know you said about potentially wrapping up in Quantumania. I wonder if it might be maybe an Avengers 5 type thing where they kind of, or maybe even Avengers 6. They'll definitely have Avengers films again.
I mean, we've got a Captain America 4. That was what was announced at the end of the Falcon and Winter Soldier series.
I wouldn't be surprised if Kang is the new Thanos there. I don't imagine they're all going to battle in Wakanda again, but which would be really awful if that just literally got repeated. But It would be pretty. I think they'll probably head towards a big build up again, similar to Thanos, but hopefully not a complete copy. So, but it could be, like you say, with the variants and things like that. It could be in Quantum Mania. We don't get the Kang, or maybe we do. Maybe we just get an element of him, a bit like we did with Thanos. So, I don't know. We've got a long time to go to 2023.
So just guessing, like yes or no, do you think that there's going to be any multiverse topic touched at all in the Eternals, or do you think it's going to appear for the first time in Spider-Man?
Well, so I think you'll definitely get a reference in Eternals, but I don't think that will be the thing, because unless because they said how they've not wanted to get involved.
Yeah,
maybe
if Thanos
now
didn't pull them out, maybe the variants and the multiverse will pull them out of hiding.
Maybe they will have to reference Loki. Although I'm looking forward to seeing what happens now with the movies and the TV shows, because obviously they've had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all these Marvel Netflix shows. They've never get referenced in the movies. I'd be interested to see what happens with the Disney Plus shows. Are they going to reference them? So,
well, my mom was very confused at the end of Black Widow with the post-credit scene, because she was like, why the fuck is Elaine here? I was like, okay, first of all, that's not her name. But yes, that's a whole other thing from the Disney Plus series.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, if you think back to it, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and their continuity, it really makes a lot of sense, because that show was terrible.
I loved Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I know, that's why I said it.
I got more and more annoyed that they never referenced things. Like, they didn't even reference the blip. I was just like, what is going on? Like, they became it was almost like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's almost like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. became its own separate timeline. That's all I can think. Like,
but
but then time travel did play into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So that's all I can think, was somehow time travel became earlier on. Maybe Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. will come back. Like, maybe, like, I know they won't.
Nah.
I think they're gone. I think all those characters are gone. I know they talk about I know there's rumors about Chloe Bennett potentially coming back, but I don't think they'll bring any of them back. I think they're gone. Like, I think
Kevin
I think Coulson's gone. I think it's all gone.
Well, Coulson died in the Avengers, so
I think they'll leave it out.
Winter Soldier.
No. He died in the first Avengers movie.
Okay,
Loki killed him.
He did.
Bring that back nicely to Loki.
He did.
But anyway, we've talked about the impact here. We're all just guessing. I think what I would like to know more is, when is season 2 going to come out? Like, and what
2 years,
3 years.
Yeah.
But what I was wondering was, so if this is a lead into Quantum Mania, is season 2 going to follow Quantum Mania?
Yes.
Are we going to have Paul Rudd show up in season 2? That would be pretty cool.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think that would be pretty cool if you start pulling in other people. So that's my thoughts. So, do you guys think they're going to see TVA elsewhere, or is it just the Loki thing?
I kind of hope it's just Loki.
Yeah, I don't really want to see them elsewhere. Like, I don't.
Well, nobody else knows about them. Like, the multiverse has split off from the sacred timeline, but nobody really knows who the TVA is.
I'd be happy with Owen Wilson showing up, but I don't want to see them all show up.
Yeah, but he doesn't even know Loki anymore, which really kind of like confused and bummed me out at the very end when he was like,
they'll figure
are you
that
an
out.
analyst? Like, what department are you from? And I'm like,
they'll figure that out.
No, Loki's one friend, and now he's gone too. That sucks.
And then I guess, like, we've talked about this already. Kang, we loved his appearance, and I think overall, I think we loved his introduction into the series, and I think
He Who Remains did said, if you think I'm bad, wait till you meet some of my variants, and I think that is definitely going to come true.
So initially, I did think it was Kang, and then I realized it is true that he is a variant of Kang. So I think overall,
I don't imagine that Jonathan Majors is going to play Kang in the same way. Like, I think he's going to play Kang like way worse.
And I think that
if this is any prelude to what Kang's going to be like, though, because he was fairly ominous. So
I think Kang is going to be scarier than Thanos. He might not be quite as powerful, but I think he's going to be scarier for sure.
Yeah, I think because you've got to step it up, right? So
exactly.
Well, what do you think on the end of season 1 then? Go, Stephen, go. What do you think about the end?
It was an awesome way to get me to want to see season 2.
That's a really good answer.
Yeah. What about you, Jasmine?
I loved it. I loved that it ended in chaos. I think that is a perfect
I do, yeah,
way
I think
to
it
kind
did.
of end a Loki series.
I love that like you say, that he didn't know who Loki was and turned around and there was a Kang statue there.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is really
Which
cool.
made me wonder, like, was that there before and I just wasn't paying attention? Because they did have a scene where they were in the library and they kind of panned out to show the whole library. And I'm like, did I miss that the first time around? So I really, like, you had asked earlier at the podcast about the rewatchability. And I think so far Loki is the one series where I'm like, I really probably need to go and like.
There's
take
loads of
another
little
look
Easter
at
eggs
those
in there.
episodes.
Like,
Yeah.
so you'll miss the go back and you'll see the scroll in. He's in the queue for the judge. So
the guy with the ticket.
Yeah.
He was the scroll. How did you know he was the scroll?
I watched something that told me there's a scroll. I didn't catch it first
He
time
didn't
around.
look like a scroll even before they purged him or pruned him.
So, but what would you rate this, Stephen?
Oh heavens, are we doing out of 5 or?
Yeah. Out of 500. No, out of 5.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Out of
4.5
5
for
variants,
me.
what do you give it?
Yeah, it's a 4.5 for me. Like I love it.
Jasmine?
I'd go 3.5.
What? Who are you? Like,
3.5.
I'm gonna smash you all. 5. 5.
Wow. Wow.
Nah, do you know what? I probably could lean towards a 4.5, but I'm gonna stick with my 5.
To bring Jasmine to a 4, I understand.
Nah, yeah. Brings us
just-
to a round 4. Yeah.
It's all about avenging the Castlevania episodes.
Touche.
By the power of Grayskull, in our 61st episode, we'll be reviewing Masters of the Universe Revelations from Netflix. I am beyond excited. And a little teaser, the following week, we've got more He-Man shit coming for you.
Oh, yeah. We're He-Manning it up. And don't forget, we did start a second podcast series where we tackle some of the most essential graphic novels of all time. Our 8th Late to the Party book club episode was Batman The Killing Joke by Alan Moore with art by Brian Bolland. That episode dropped at the end of July. And in August, we are back to nonfiction as we take a deep dive into Persepolis by Marjan Satrapi.
You can follow Geeks Unleashed everywhere on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, just Geeks Unleashed. That's it. Find us, follow us, comment, tweet. You do your shit.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Do you ever wish that you could talk to your friends about the latest episode of Geeks Unleashed? Well, you know how you can do that. You can share with them that this podcast is available anywhere that podcasts are available. Podbean, Google, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else that you can find those podcasts. Give us a 5-star review and share it with all your geeky friends.
Thanks for listening. Have a good week.
Bye.